Hello and thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. This week, Bola Tinubu visits Oyo State, after which Sanwo-Olu holds a reception for President in Lagos, where the President Fashola Ambode and Governor of Lagos State meet for the first time in 4 years. Also this week, Defense Headquarters gives general deadline to retire after President Tinubu's appointment of service chiefs. Later on the show, the Acting Inspector General of Police vows to effect the withdrawal of police mobile force personnel from VIP escort duties and establish a special squad. All the details in a moment. Stay with us. Well, we will begin with President Bola Tinubu's activities during the Eid celebration. He visited President Bola Tinubu, visited the Oyo State, where he made a stop at the palace of Awujale of Ijebu land, Oba Sikiru Kayode Adetona. Governor Abiodun was on the ground to receive President Tinubu, who landed at the Dipodina Stadium in Ijebu on a Nigerian Air Force helicopter. Here, he noted that he invoked the spirit of freedom and determination in Oyo State, where he faced some hurdles before the election. Lagos was next on the agenda, where the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, held a welcome reception for President Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Here, former governors Babatunde Fashola, Akiwumi Ambode, and current Lagos State Governor Sanwo-Olu meet with the president for the first time in 4 years at Tinubu's reception. Joining me to discuss this in the studio is Olufemi Lawson, the Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. Welcome, Mrs. Olufemi. Yeah, so it's been an interesting event during the week where the president noted that he had to invoke the spirit of freedom and determination during his campaign days in Oyo State. How important do you think this was for him during his final win in the poll?
It's significant. I remember this is the first time the president is coming home since his inauguration on May 29th as the president of Nigeria, and visiting Ogun at that same time was also symbolic. If you recall that through the process of, the practice primaries and other campaign activities towards securing the APC presidential ticket and, of course, the general election, Ogun was one of the places where the president now, the then aspirant under the APC, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, then made, some statement that actually gave life to his presidential ambition then. The visit to Oyo State during the campaign, on two significant occasions while he was canvassing delegate support and, of course, while campaigning as a candidate of the All Progressives Congress, was so significant to the extent that it's redefined the issues around the presidential campaign. It was so significant to the extent that people saw the candidate of a ruling party coming out to challenge certain policies that are considered not only against his interest, as a candidate, but also at that time imposing hardship on Nigerians. So it was historic that it was in Oyo State that Asiwaju Tinubu, then now President Bola Tinubu, voiced out, his resentment to the politics that was being played by certain elements then within the All Progressives Congress and later within the then administration, which had some element within it trying to, frustrate his effort to become candidate and later to win the election as the candidate of the APC. So going back to Oyo State becomes important, and of course, reminding the people what happened during the electionary process was so very significant.
Some say it's also strategic. Some say it's also strategic for his future political ambition.
Of course, not only for President Bola Tinubu. Oyo State has always been, a very important state when you talk about Nigeria politics. When you look at the history of, politics in Nigeria, it's one of the states that have produced leaders. It's one of the states where people who have reshaped our political destiny as a nation has emerged from. Today, the essence of this republic was tied around the emergence of Bashir Abiola in 93, a mandate denied, with an agitation that led to the rebirth of democracy in 1999. If you look at when even the military, hurriedly abandoned governance and handed over to an interim civilian government, it was still from Oyo State that Chief Ernest Shedeko was brought. And in 1999, when democracy was to be returned, it was still from the same Oyo State that former President Obasanjo was brought out to contest. So Oyo State has always been very strategic when you talk about the political evolution of Nigeria. And I think that is why the president now has, of course, made that clear in a statement while in Oyo State.
All right, Olufemi, another interesting event or an interesting activity that happened during the week is the presence of Ambode in the reception to honor President Tinubu. Did you see that coming? Did you see that union happening? And what lessons do you think can be learned from there?
Of course, there have been a lot of assumptions and insinuations around that. Of course, there have been some moves to reconcile the former governor Ambode to his old political family. And we saw that prior to that, he had his 60th birthday, and the governor of Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, was present during it. But it is very significant to note that the president specifically mentioned and deliberately welcomed the former governor back into the political family, by specifically identifying his, recognizing his presence, and of course appreciating his presence at that event. And that tells you one thing. It tells you what people have often said, like him or not. President Bola Tinubu has been described as one politician with a large heart, who is always willing to accommodate even his political foes when the opportunity arises. And I think what the president demonstrated during that reception further, confirms the fact that he's always willing to accommodate even those who have been on the other side of the divide with him politically. And I think it's significant that we saw people who have governed the state from 1999 till date coming together at that reunion openly in a very significant occasion like that, that is welcoming one of them who has now become the president of Nigeria back to the state.
All right, let's also talk about some admirable speeches the president made during this event, which is message of faith, unity, and renewed hope. How would you describe this, the whole president's speech?
It's important. The important message is Nigeria needs to have faith, but most importantly, Nigerians are having a lot of hope for a rebirth, because when you look at where the country has been in the last couple of years, you realize that Nigerians need a leader who will not only give assurances as such that has been given by the president, but who also demonstrates, practically the readiness to restore the hope of Nigerians. Because Nigerians have been fed with rhetorics over the past couple of years. Nigerians have been fed with rhetorics, promises, and assurances. But I think now we are beginning to expect the president to advance from the realm of promises to the realm of practicalizing these promises and the renewed hope that it has promised. And I think Nigerians are anxiously looking forward in the days ahead for the manifestation of what President Bola Tinubu has been known for as far as governance and leadership is concerned. And I think that is why he has restated that during those events that he had during the course of the holiday. And I think the president must move beyond the realm of speeches to ensuring that more practical interventions are made by his administration to really and genuinely give Nigerians hope again.
All right, I agree with you. Nigerians are looking forward to hands-on kind of president, and I don't think President Tinubu is doing bad so far. Right now, let's take a short break, and Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining in, it's Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. Now, this week, senior military officers in Nigeria were given a deadline of Monday, July 3rd, 2023, by the Defense Headquarters to tender their resignation. It directed all senior officers with seniority on commission above Nigerian Defense Academy regular course 39 to proceed on voluntary retirement. The notice of resignation was issued in an official statement from the Defense Headquarters signed by Major General Yahaya Forward, the Chief of Defense Staff. It should be noted that according to military tradition, senior officers are unlikely to take orders from their juniors. Thus, the new appointments necessitate the compulsory retirement of about 100 top officers, including generals, brigadiers, general, air vice marshals, and admirals in the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force from the force. I still have Olufemi Lawson in the studio. How do you react to this development? Many believe it's long overdue.
No, it's an age-long tradition, even though it's not a matter of law. But just like you said, it is a tradition which allows these new service chiefs to function without hindrances. And it is very unfortunate that it has to get to the point where official circulars have to be issued for the persons in this category to quit at this point, because it has been something that silently, has been done over the years, where, people are elevated to certain ranks. It is expected the people who are their seniors in service are eased out of, because just like you said, it is strange in the military tradition for senior officers to take orders from their juniors. And for people who were commissioned earlier as officers of the military than these ones who are currently serving as a service chief, it is only traditionally expected for them to be quietly hissed out of the service. But I think the refusal of some of these persons to leave now is necessitating this kind of circular, which is almost alien, in the military culture and tradition. And I think it is one of the reasons why the new leadership of the country must ensure that some issues that have to do with our laws and conventions are given serious respect. Our institutions have to be looked into to the extent that certain things are not allowed to generate into public ridicule. Like this may almost, if you recall that days after the appointment of the service chiefs, the chief of naval staff was still resuming in his office, waiting, allegedly signing documents and refusing to hand over, as at the time the chief of army staff and chief of air staff had handed over to their successors. So these are issues that has to do with discipline and the fact that there seems to be an attempt to deviate from the culture, the tradition of that system. And I think this is not encouraging, especially when it is known that in the military service, it is practically impossible for senior ranking officers to take orders from their junior, who have now become their bosses in this case.
All right, like you said, it's tradition, but then let's look at the situation in the country, how the issue of insecurity is really eating the country deep, and what could be the implication of this mass looming retirement?
Well, of course, it is even funny at some point when we begin to hear the number of people who are already in the rank of major generals and the likes, numbering into hundreds in the military service. The truth is that these wars are not going to be won, especially when you look at experience in the last couple of years, by the number of generals we have been able to produce. If you look at the people who have had sterling performances and records in the war against insurgency in Nigeria, they are not mostly generals. You have recalled the history of some of these people who are lieutenant colonel, who have led battles in the northeast and other parts of the country. So it is not about the number of generals that you have as a country in your military that determines your capacity to achieve victory in this kind of wars that we are having. I think it's all about professionalism, which can be attained by the military through any of its cadreship, any of its category in the service, not necessarily by having 400, 350 generals, most of whom are not even on the battlefield.
All right. Do you also agree with me that the president has continued to make changes in different sectors across the polity? And do you see this continuing? Do you see these changes continuing? And what is the sector, do you think, that needs more of these touches or rejigging more? Well,
I think, in all sincerity, the president's eye cannot be everywhere. And that is why Nigerians are anticipating that President Bola Tinubu will bring in, a very solid team of credible people, brilliant and experienced people to work with him. You see, Nigerians are excited to see the president suspending the former governor of the central bank, the former chairman of the EFCC. But the truth is that a lot of agencies in Nigeria are riddled, with corruption, incompetence. A lot of agencies in Nigeria today are doing worse than the EFCC, ICP, and CBN have done under Bauer and Emefiele. So the president must broaden, his approach to check, to bring in credibility back into the system, to bring in, law and order back into the system. And that is why we are asking that agencies of government, especially those critical agencies of government that have been, run in such a manner that are not only corrupt, but have entrenched sort of culture that are against the progress of this country, have to be looked into. Like I said, the president cannot do it alone. The president must be willing to, listen to advices from people who are going to work with him, people who are going to have beamed their searchlight into the activities of these agencies of government. A lot of them, like that, a lot of agencies have become cesspool of corruption. And the leadership of these agencies are still sitting down there. So the president must look beyond these core agencies like he is doing to all those other critical agencies of government, ministries and departments where corruption and other form of illegalities have become the order of the day. So far, the president is not doing bad in his approach to governance, but it is not unexpected of the kind of person he is from his antecedent. But I think more has to be done to give Nigerians more confidence in his administration.
I totally agree. Thank you very much so far. Now let's move to our final story for tonight. The acting Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Botokun, has vowed to withdraw police mobile force personnel from VIP escort guard duties. This is as he established the Special Intervention Squad, which according to him would have 40,000 highly trained police officers, including selected officers from the police mobile force. The development, he said, was to allow the police to take back its place in the internal security architecture of the country. He added that the establishment of the squad would help the police to promptly respond to security threats, noting that 1,000 personnel would be deployed to every state. Ebotokun noted that the withdrawal PMF officers will be replaced by officers from the Special Protection Unit. I still have Olufemi with me. Now, a lot of Nigerians believe this is a long-time call, like this is really timely. Well, what can you say?
It's timely, but it's not new. If you want to agree with me, I think since 1999, there has never been an Inspector General of Police that has come.
And did not mention this.
This similar. And of course, a lot of times we've had IGPs, CPs coming to dismantle roadblocks, and the next time you're traveling to Benin, the roadblocks are bad. We've seen our policemen reduced to this ridiculous extent of serving as domestic aids, even to politically exposed persons and even some private individuals in the country. It is so shameful and it's saddening also at the same time that we have to reduce a very strategic national security institution to such where policemen now carry rifles escorting Malam to slaughter cow and all sort of ridiculous sin. It is only believed that this may be achievable under acting IGP Egbetokun if, going by what is believed to be the seriousness and the capacity that the President Tinubu administration will bring into governance. But if it has to be on the basis of tradition, on the basis of what we have experienced since 1999, this may end up as one of the regular statements of every IGP that have emerged since 1999. But it's very unfortunate that a very strategic unit of the force that should be involved in serious issues of internal security have been reduced to VIP escorts and all sort of domestic responsibilities. So I believe that the IGP will only, or it is my opinion, that the IGP will only be able to enforce this on the basis of the determination of the leadership, the president of the country. If the president shows commitment to ensure that our security institutions are made to work and face their jobs squarely, it's not going to be impossible for the IGP to achieve, especially with a president like President Bola Tinubu, whose commitment to duty is always different from what we have had in the recent past. So I think this will not only end up as one of those promises we've heard from IGP Tafa Balogun, Regime, MD Abaka, and also to one that will be enforced by the administration to the extent that the police will see itself as an institution under the current administration and will work towards redeeming its credibility, because we cannot continue to read IGP dismantling roadblock, removing mobile policemen from VIPs, and the next 2 months they are back doing the same duties. So the IGP must work in line with what looks like the kind of leadership that the country has today and be ready to ensure that this is done. And this is going to be it's going to bring back some level of confidence into the force. So that to the extent that when you now see mobile policemen like it used to be in the days of old, you know that these are men on serious security operations. Today, you can hardly differentiate between policemen on serious national security assignment and those who are escorting politicians to Owambe and all sorts of social functions. So we have to be able to distinguish this to the extent that when you see this category of policemen, you know these are attached to VIPs, politicians, or private individuals. You know these ones are people who are into private protections. You should be able to differentiate between policemen who should be on serious national security assignment and those who are just assigned to people who are seen all over the place in social gatherings and all sorts of funny places where you now see our mobile policemen.
All right, Olufemi, looking at the very frequent cases of police brutality and harassment in Nigerian policy today, which triggered the idea of NSAS, how important is it for the Nigerian police force to train and restrain their forces in order to better the security situation in the country?
It's very important, and I think the incumbent leadership of the police is taking that into cognizance. They only yesterday or thereabout, they first issued a statement, expressing its readiness to inculcate into the curriculum at their various institutions the need for professionalism in the police force. I only want to advise that the leadership of the force must advance beyond, some of this professional training it is open to imbibe in the force to such that will involve, encouraging and, training policemen as far as their relationship with the civilian population is concerned. There must be this citizens-police, relation orientation for the police. And that is the only way you can prevent all these kind of fracas that are led to, a lot of dispute between the citizens and the police, led to the breakdown of trust between the citizens and the police, and sort of a crisis that we have experienced in the past. So this force must be ready to work not only within its institutions, but also work with other category of Nigerians, with other civil society and public institutions that will be willing to partner with the force to retrain, to give orientations and work with the police in repositioning how the citizens, really see the force today, which is not so much in a good light.
There's also this idea the IGP mentioned, forming a special squad to deploy 1,000 special squad to different states and the country. What do you make of that?
Well, we only hope that will not become another federal SARS, which will become notorious, acting on the order of IGP, because in this state we saw a situation whereby policemen deployed to the state were not even taking orders from the CP at some point because they were deployed by the IGP, and they almost became a camp on their own in Lagos, engaging in some sort of atrocities. So in doing this, the IGP must be conscious of the fact that such structures must work in line with the guiding principles and laws of the police within the Police Act, and must also work within the laws of the states so that they don't become some form of authorities and another form of SARS in the states where they're going to be deployed. Security is primarily the job of the citizens and the local authorities. So deploying forces from the federal police to states may not work well if they don't work with the various local authorities, the state government, these citizens across the states that are going to be deployed. Otherwise, that may give birth to another form of federal SARS that may end up becoming another notorious gang of policemen.
All right, I want to thank you, Olufemi Lawson. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for your contribution. And that's our show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG, on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. Until next week, it's goodbye.